Well, thank you so much for joining us today on WowBiz Nebraska. As always, I try to focus on some topics and some trends that are relevant to many, many different industries here in the Nebraska area. But what's happening right now, as I noticed, is that many businesses are a little leery. They're slowing down. They're looking around. AI frightens the heck out of them. Actually, about 80% of all small and medium-sized companies are really uptight about AI and don't know if they should be reading or going to seminars or just forgetting about it or paying some premium price to hire some young person to come in and develop AI and find some way to customize AI. But putting all that aside for just a moment, they're kind of hanging out here since the very beginning of this year, the beginning of 2026. And around now, a lot of them are saying, well, I guess we better move forward and try to do something. Maybe we should go to the next level. Think about your industry for a minute, who's out there competitively and so on, and then ask yourself, what would it take? What would it take for us to go to the next level? This is a very interesting question because you see people talking about it all the time. In fact, right here, you can see an image, little boy right here, and he's holding a basketball on top of his head. Obviously, that's a symbol of going to the next level. He lifted up that basketball, put it on his head, and it's kind of a nice, interesting symbol of going to the next level, working at a higher level, shall we say, and coming up with ideas that transcend the competition and some of the ideas that you've come together with in the past. And that's what I want to visit with you about for just a minute, because I think it's a fairly broad statement that a lot of people are making to themselves, business owners and so on. What do we do? Come on, we got to get together and just take it to the next level, and everybody's standing around the table going, yeah, that's a good idea, but what does that really mean, boss? You know, what does it really mean to go to the next level? So let's talk about some of the components that would go into that, the ingredients in the soup called the next level. So number one, let's think of something here. I think probably a new product or new service would be the number one thing. That would be the thing that would take you to the next level. All of a sudden you got new revenue, you got people going, wow, that thing you got out there is pretty cool. So that would probably be first and foremost. Secondly, maybe bringing in a heavyweight executive or a heavyweight marketing or sales person, somebody who kind of has stood out in their career, and it probably costs a lot of money to get them into the operation, but nevertheless, that would kind of give people a symbol like, wow, I guess he's going to push himself, and he's probably going to push us hard as well, so we better get ready for that. So now those are two considerations. Now, the third consideration would probably be outsourcing specific topics or specific technology, marketing concepts, whatever, and outsourcing them. Because you got to remember, these days, we don't want to be naive and say, well, I've got the best people in the world here and blah, blah, blah. That's not true anymore. Many people are out there. A lot of them are solo players, freelancers, consultants, coaches, whatever. They're very bright people, and so bringing them into your operation is probably a good idea because they've been there before. They've seen it. They've seen what you would like to do, and they've seen it in some other context, and it's been pretty helpful and so on. So they know how to help guide you. Maybe they're at your desk every morning at 8:30 and asking pressing, thoughtful questions about what do you think is the next move that you're going to make? Let's talk about that, and I'll help choreograph that by putting the right people in the right place so that this expansion, this attitude of doing unlimited things, right? Transcendent things, let's call it that. And so you clearly are thinking out of the box here, and I think that's really very healthy, but you've got to get people on the same page so that they're not just standing on the sidelines saying, yeah, I don't know, it's probably not going to work, blah, blah, blah. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. I've been in the middle of those kinds of situations before. For instance, a very well-known engineering firm here in the Omaha area, they were kind of moving along, just basic, doing basic stuff, not always getting the client business that they thought they would probably get because they were well established in the operation. But then finally, the presumption just kind of stopped, and I was hired to come in and be some kind of a catalyst And the very first thing I did, and this is, we've forgotten to mention this probably be the fourth thing now that we're talking about. You go out right off the bat and you go talk to past clients, people who have done business with these people for a long time. And you ask pressing questions, usually kind of open-ended questions. Not everybody is, good at quippy, and some of them are really try to think and they can't come up with something. But if you stick in there, and I think I interviewed in this case that I'm discussing about 20 to 24 people or organizations here in the Omaha area. And I got one nugget of insider information that blew apart the business owner's brain, right? So he was operating over here and it was okay. He was doing all right, but he wasn't doing great, and people were losing their faith in him and their enthusiasm about following him. And he knew that. He didn't say it openly, but he knew he was a little bit on thin water, shall we say, or he needed a success and the ability to take some of that himself, as well as his executive team. Well, anyway, I talked and I learned and I asked and I finally got somebody here in town, prominent firm in the real estate business, and they said, those guys over there, they're nice people. They always want to talk about the past and their track record and all the things they've done and so on and so forth. But really, and most of the younger people we have on our team, they don't care about that. They don't care about that. Really, what they really want to do is they want to talk about the future and what's coming at them and what should be we should be doing and so on. That's where their head is at. And so, we want to try to embrace that kind of energy and vigor and so on. And so, like I said before, and then so we had to come back, we had to change direction. And what are the implications of this? This is a classic consulting, repositioning, rebranding kind of a challenge. And fortunately, I was able to succeed at doing that, and I came up with a lot of different ways. I think we created 8 different concepts on the wall. Now, I don't want to say this wasn't just an advertising campaign. I just want you to know this had to do with deep down identity. When somebody says, well, what company do you work for? And you say, well, I work for ABC, and you want to be proud of the name of the company, And there are a lot of people that just didn't have that feeling about this company, but they got, I got involved with them and one by one, we took a look at 8 different ways. We look at like looking at yourself in the mirror, only this was far more detailed and colors and various different symbols and messaging and so on. And so people couldn't get over it. They couldn't believe that some outsider, and this is the power of an outsider, by the way, coming up with this is who we are, this is what we stand for, this is what we do, this is what people say about us, this is where we're going, this is what we become. What are we talking about here? 7 or 8 different gorgeous images, all very different from each other. People were blown away, and yet it felt like an indulgence. Nobody had ever said, hey, we want your opinion as an employee to telling us, our leadership team, who do you think we are and who are you going to turn into as a human being as a result of being part of this team? Well, that was exciting. People couldn't believe that they were getting that question coming from the boss and so on. So I'm just trying to lay out for you so you understand what it means when people say we're going to go to the next level. We're going to operate at a higher level. I'm describing right now one of several things. I've already mentioned, I think, 4 tactics, but this last one, this lengthy story about going out and talking to your customers, you'll find out an enormous, but it's hard to do. It's easier to get an outsider to come in and do it. They're professionals, and it doesn't always work. It can be difficult and expensive, but when it clicks, it changes everything, and it's very exciting going forward from there. I saw them again a few months later, and let me tell you, they had grins on their faces. They were going to meetings. Everybody was high five. It was really exciting to see how things like that, conversations about what does it really look like, and when you get so caught up in your own little world, it's very difficult to even begin to think out of the box or go to a higher level. All right, I think I've made my point. Now, listen, I'm going to hold up, I guess I would call it a flyer, a promotional piece of material, but this speaks to and underscores what I just said. This is an introduction to customer research, right? Something I've done many times for companies that feel a little lost. They're kind of floating around, not exactly sure. And every company right now in early 2026, almost all companies are struggling with this question at the very top of this flyer, which is, what do they think about you, right? What do they think about you? And what are they willing to say along those lines? Well, listen, before we wrap up here very briefly, I do want you to know, I'm sure you've heard me utilize this word urban natural over the years that I've done this show. We're going to, at the back end of the promotional segment that we have coming up here very soon, I'm going to pick up on that again. I'm going to show you some people. I'm going to show you some geography, some real estate, so to speak, that speaks to and underscores the importance and the value of that. And I'm talking about the realty and the actual tangible ground and area that I'm discussing right here, but also the word urban natural and what it does mean and how people go, that's very intriguing. I like that word. Well, anyway, I'm not going to wreck it because I'm going to get back to you right after our promotional sponsor. It's a very exciting sponsor, and I appreciate them being involved with us right here on WowBiz Nebraska. And what I want to tell you is that I appreciate you being here. We've been doing this now for some time, and a lot of people are starting to talk about it. They realize there is true knowledge to be gained here in only half an hour, every morning or every week or whatever it is when you choose to look at WowBiz Nebraska. We'll be right back after our promotional sponsor says their piece. Thanks. Well, our promotional sponsor is a company called V-Mail. V-Mail Voltage actually is the full thing. And I love the voltage part because it's kind of dynamic and energetic and so on. But what they bring to the party is changing everything in sales development, and particularly email prospect. Everybody uses email for prospecting. It can be very difficult, of course, the phone as well. I'm going to hold up an image right here, and you'll see it right off the bat, and you'll see yours truly. I'm right there behind that, representing the company. But it's very exciting because what you see here is a different way. It's coming from Europe, by the way, and it's a different way to accelerate the sales process. So when somebody says, okay, I'm going to make some calls here today, that's my job, I'm the sales guy, I got to find out, see if we can get somebody on the phone to chat with me or do an email and respond to me. It's very difficult to do. It's not an easy thing to do. But if you have somebody at the very beginning, starting a whole relationship, right? Much like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, somebody that is a news person or personality or somebody that does a lot of speaking and someone can respond easily and so on. And it's a one-way. We're not talking about a two-way interactive thing. This is not a Zoom thing. It's simply a video that gets on the screen, and that person talks to very specific. They know the first name of the person that is the recipient, of course, for this system. And this person who is endorsing your company, this is the key. They introduce themselves, they talk one-to-one, and they speak highly in some detail about the problems and the company that represents them and that they are working for. So it's very interesting. V-Mail Velocity. Think about it, get it, call the company, do something about being part of V-Mail. Well, I mentioned urban natural development, urban natural design, urban natural people. I've used this word frequently because people really take to the word, they just don't know exactly what it means. Well, a couple of years ago, I had the privilege of presenting an urban natural design, urban natural concept to a city council member who represents North Omaha. Now, Juanita Jackson is not that person now. She's no longer involved there. But we had a lengthy conversation about urban natural design as it would manifest and show up in North Omaha. And you can see right here, we had a lengthy discussion about what urban natural really is, which of course, I'm going to explain it real quick. When you start bringing hard and soft together, sophistication and rural, technology and organic, very, very opposite ideas. If you're setting up an apartment complex or you're trying to decorate your home or your garden or even a median on the street out in front, whatever it is, you're bringing two opposite things together. By the way, in 1981, it was determined that if you bring high contrast colors or surfaces or images, just as I'm trying to discuss right here, it actually goes through the retina in your eyes, back to the back of your brain, the vertical or vision cortex, if I'm saying that correctly, and it evokes and releases a hormone into your brain. I know it's really a kind of a weird thing to be talking about. In fact, in those worlds, scientifically, this is called for neurology, neuroaesthetics. Very interesting when you're looking at two contrasting things together, whether it's greenery right next to concrete or something, anything like that. Of course, you go inside of a house or an apartment building, and right off the bat, you see, what do you see? Wood, furniture, you see wood and metal right together. And you see it all over the place. It's in Runza's dining room. It's in, oh my goodness, it's really all over the place. Very big trend, but people don't realize it's called urban natural, nor do they realize the effect, the environmental effect it's having on them and their emotion. Puts them in a good mood. That's the bottom line. So if I were trying to convince somebody to come to Omaha, and they're currently working or just graduated over in Des Moines, Iowa, or Fort Dodge, or Clear Lake, or down in Leavenworth, Kansas, whatever, and I somehow got their name, it was clear that they were a young professional, and they did very well and good grades and all that, and they're looking around, they're trying to figure out where they want to go, and they fit into this particular kind of company or industry, whatever. This is what's going on in their head, and somehow we here in Omaha, we in Nebraska, we find this person. And we say, look, we know a little bit about you. We would call a person like you an urban natural person. And by the way, that means eclectic. You like combining old and new and hard and soft and so on. And you're that kind of a guy. We know that your hormones are positively impacted, your mood. In fact, we call it good vibes. If you can come over here to Omaha, spend a little bit of time, we'll expose you to some urban natural areas, neighborhoods, and of course, buildings. And I think you're going to understand then what I'm trying to say right now. You might want to think about actually moving over here because we have a lot of areas that are going to be redesigned via the urban natural context, shall I say, the system or the way things are evolving right now is urban natural. Anyway, that's a great pitch. It's a pitch I don't think economic developers are using at this time. They should be, right? Because there's a scientific basis for the whole thing. It's not just, hey, I think it's pretty cool. You might want to, it's much more than that. But anyway, so I was visiting with Juanita Johnson about it, and I happened to be at Panera's, and she said, this is exactly what I've been thinking of for North Omaha, but I didn't have the name for it. And of course, the name is urban natural. It's not something you'd come up with. But here's the interesting words that you see on your right-hand side up here is opposites attract, right? We know all that. You've heard that kind of thing before, but now we're applying that specifically. And of course, you see Urban Natural America. I'm going to finish up with these visuals right here. You can see it, right? Here we have greenery and softness. It's very organic. And it's right next to all this cement and the outside of the pool and so on, and the water. This is a beautiful example of blending and melding opposite elements in your environment. Either way, it's going to make you feel better. It's just going to, it'll be a subtle change in mood and hormone structure and so on. I know it sounds a little weird, a little off the path, but this is something I've investigated for going on 15, 20 years. So I know where it's coming from. And many people will tell you, I love that. And it is a trend. people at Gallup, the person that supervises the publishing department and gets the books out and so on, the research books and so on at Gallup. He said, you're onto something, Lynn. You figured something out. You're seeing something. The word is excellent. It does a great job of describing the two opposite ideas. Most frequently, it's wood and metal, wood and tin or aluminum, wood and glass be a good example. And you see them all the time. You see them in some of the most contemporary buildings or homes here in the Omaha area. Anyway, pretty cool. I want you to be aware of it. Don't forget this word. And because urban naturalism is here to stay, and soon it's going to be more than just a design pattern. It's going to be a magnet. It's going to be a magnet for Nebraska and for Omaha. That's how it's going to be. Listen, before I leave and before I wrap up here, I want to show you what a deck, you know what a deck is, a combination of lots of different papers, like, a sales copy or a sales deck. Think about the Woodhouse automotive family right now. They have many, many, many dealerships, as we all know, and a lot of very talented people there and their sales staff and so on. And a lot of them are just kind of sitting there waiting for somebody to walk in the showroom. We see that all the time. But one brand in particular is very interesting. The Infiniti brand. Have you heard about the Infiniti brand? You know, obviously, it's been an automotive brand been around a long time. But there is some discussion about phasing Infiniti out, no longer carrying that particular brand. Maybe they send them all over to Europe or South America. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but and it's not for sure, but they're sitting there figuring, what should we do with these beautiful luxury vehicles with the Infiniti brand on them? Now, I got involved in this a little bit, and I started thinking about it, as is the case often with me, and I started thinking that Infiniti, right, is very similar to the word infinite. Yes, of course. And so if you think about that word infinite, it's kind of an interesting word. Where does it belong, right? Who uses the word? Well, I'll tell you the people who think about it, that's young people that are coming here, or they're looking for jobs, or they're floating around, they're trying to figure out what a great job would be and so on. Because, listen carefully now, their careers are virtually infinite. Remember, we have AI now in our world. Everything can go anywhere. So I began thinking about this infinite career idea and getting people into a showroom there at Woodhouse, where all the Infinitis are, and leveraging the Infiniti brand name with this word. It's a sales word, it's a messaging, a theme, concept. Come to this dealership where there is infinite potential. You're going to meet employers. We're going to get all the people from West Omaha that own companies. We're going to get them to come into the Woodhouse dealership, right? And then we're going to advertise this and try to get a lot of people who are Gen Z or Gen Y, get them into the show. And then, try to bring them together and meet this guy, and he's a good guy, and shake hands and so on. By the way, they're checking out the Infinitis all around them and out there in the used car lot and so on. They may not buy an Infiniti. It's a luxury vehicle, of course, but there's going to be a lot of cars out there they might be interested in. But the key idea is utilizing an automobile showroom as a platform for career evolution, development, matching, and then have somebody speaking and obviously keep reminding everybody that the Infiniti brand, right, is closely related to an infinite opportunity with this industry, and this industry, and this industry, and you guys can do a ton of things. There's no end to having an incredible career here in the Omaha area, and really linking the activity to economic development downtown, and the people that are working very hard down there on the construction going on downtown. But they want people to come. Now, we have 1 million people in Omaha. That's good, but not nearly as much as it should be. There's so many more jobs than we have people that we just have to turn it on, do something imaginative, energetic, and so on. Right there in the Woodhouse showroom, they'd say, wow, we've never realized we actually have impact in our community in this category, which is career development, all these young professionals and so on. We didn't think about that, but sure enough, these two words, infinite and Infiniti, came together right there in the woodhouse floor. Now, it has not happened. It may or may not happen, but I'm here today to tell you that would be a successful gig for everybody involved. That's right. Infinite possibilities. I'm going to hold this up. Here's the cover of this so-called presentation. Somebody at Woodhouse is going to look at this and say, well, you know, why would we not want to do this? This is exciting, and get a lot of people in here and do some cool things and leverage the brand, the Infinity brand, and make some money, have a good time, you know? Absolutely. Okay, well, listen. Thank you so much for joining me here on WowBiz Nebraska. I got all wound up again. I had the opportunity to hold up a picture of my grandson and the basketball on his head. Don't forget the metaphorical power, symbolism. This is what people are looking for. They don't want the literal logic. Well, that's 32% better or whatever. They are interested in the symbols and the metaphors that you're able to kind of emerge at just the right time when you're selling or you're meeting somebody and so on. Keep that in mind. Work on symbols and metaphors. You'll be respected by other people because you can flip them out and go, wow, that's a good way to think about it. I never really thought about it that way. Thank you so much. I know it. I've seen that before. My name is Lynn Hinderaker. This is WowBiz Nebraska. We've done this for a long time, but every single week it's exciting to hear more and learn from you, not just from me. Thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen. See you next time. Bye-bye.